Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Blue Eye Samurai Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, it never, like last episode, I brought up the whole thing of, I figured Mizu might play the role of a prostitute to get close to Fowler because she knows that would be the way to get into his castle. But I said at the time, I was like, well, there's no getting around your blue eyes. I was like, how would that benefit you? And then as the episode started and we kind of saw where it began, where we got that in media res where it's like, oh, Akemi and Misu meet, and I was like, right, never even crossed my mind that you would approach this situation as a customer. But even then, as a customer, how will you being a customer in this situation get you closer to Fowler? I still didn't get it, but it was about meeting Madame Kaji, who is one of the madams at the one of the brothels, who the moment I heard her voice, I was like, wait, is that Ming-Na Wen? And it super is. I recognize her voice immediately, which feels so poetic that it's like, of course you're going to get the voice of Mulan to kind of be a part of the show in some shape or form. So that's pretty dope. It's actually interesting. Madame Kaji's character kind of reminds me, if you've seen the show Warrior, there's a lot of parallels with her and Atoy, especially Atoy's relationship with Lai. There's a lot of parallels between those relationships, especially considering like Lai didn't really talk. It wasn't because there's the Kinuo of it all with Kaji, but it's like she doesn't. Kinuo doesn't speak and she's deaf. So, but there's the moment they were in that element got introduced, I immediately thought of Atoy and Lai. I was like, dude, that's so interesting. It's a really tragic situation. Obviously, it's like she was sold off by her father, who was abusive, and Kaji's the one that took care of her and promised to take care of her, to never let another man touch her again. But the problem is, what's his name? Hamada likes to, he finds stuff that he likes to break, and he took her and wanted her because he controls he gets half of everything at the brothels in this place. He controls everything in this town. And so when he wants something, he has it. Because if you defy him, he'll make an example out of you by killing you, but he'll also burn everything to the ground. He'll cause a lot of death and destruction, so you don't want to cross him. That's why Kaji wanted to approach things the way she did. Because obviously she's trying to do the whole thing of getting Mizu to, it's like, oh, you're a gentleman, so let me show you the peculiarities of what my establishment's all about. Which, it's kind of like little fetishes of some people wanting to be spanked and treated like a baby, other people wanting their feet tickled. It's like all the like maybe more niche things, but it's like you get to let your desires let loose. And I think it's interesting where it's like, oh, you're a swordsman, but if all you know is a sword, then you're cutting off a part of yourself, because pleasure is a part of life. And showing Mizu all these different things of like, oh, one person being bound up and like pulled up, another person being slapped. Well, that same person being slapped is the swordsman that Mizu and Ringo had seen earlier. And it seems like he's into guys as well, because it's like a threesome. And that got Mizu thinking about that tackle, like that when they were kind of rolling on top of each other, her and Taigen last episode, that it's like there's probably some form of attraction there in a weird way. I mean, because she's kind of like denied that for so long, because like obviously in her older age she wasn't really around people. She was mainly around the sword makers, so she wasn't really around people her own age. And so she's probably like the only men, like she's always just been around men that she's trying to kill. So but I mean, we also don't know which way the pendulum Mizu may swing. I mean, it might be both ways. Maybe it's one way. Maybe it's not even the one way towards men. Maybe it's women. I'm so curious, because she doesn't get too caught up in it, because once again, she doesn't need love or power or money or happiness. She just needs satisfaction. But it is still like the human body wants what it wants, and it's like you do have wants no matter how much you're burying them deep inside. Like if you are cutting off a part of yourself as a human being, I mean, regardless of, it doesn't have to be an important part. But it is still part of the human experience of sex. So it does play a role. Obviously, it depends on the person. It plays more of a role, less a role in the relationships and dynamics. But you can't completely suppress that. But it's understandable why very few people know you're a woman, and there's a lot layers to that kind of attribute to probably you I mean, once again, it's also your mission is your priority. So getting caught up in desires and needs, you saying you don't need those because your desire is just purely about revenge, but your reaction and your thought thinking of Tigan at the time makes you kind of feel like, nah, there might be a little more to that, no matter how much you're pushing it down. So thought that was interesting. But yeah, like initially, Kaiji doesn't want to have anything to do with like helping Mizu because it's like, no, like Fowler's regardless of, yes, he has, because that man is so bored, he is that type of person. He's like, I don't care if it's the type of person who can't or like come until they see blood, because it's like there are some depraved people, and it seems like Fowler might be on that same level. But it's like, yeah, he does stuff to her girls, probably like bangs them up quite a bit, just because he's so bored with everything. That's his only way to get off. So you can already tell the guy was a little sadistic, but yeah. But it turns out it's like, oh, what about Shido? Has he ever hit you or anyone with a right hand? Well, don't worry about it. I got him back. I cut off his right hand. So it's like, right, you need me to do something? What is it you desire? And she wanted, instead of going after Hamada, it's like, don't go after him. Go after Kinyuo. Kill her, because the only way she'll find peace, but make it look like an accident, or you're going to start some shit here with Hamada. So I'd actually completely forgotten Misu was wearing weights until she took them off for that sequence, and I was like, "That's so interesting." Because I'm like thinking back, I'm like, were you wearing those when you fought the Fangs? But then I was like, well, to be fair, with the Four Fangs, because she did hop into water beforehand. I mean, she put her clothes back on, but I don't know if at that time if she had put the weights back on or not. So she was pretty nimble. I mean, she's very nimble without them, but with them on, but still, like, she's far more nimble without all the weight. So I'm like, she was fairly nimble in that fight. So it probably is a situation where she probably didn't have them on at the time. Like I said, it didn't even cross my mind, because the only time we touched on that at all story beat wise so far was episode 1. So this is the most recent time we've brought up the weights again. Kind of felt bad that she had to end up killing that bird, but there's passion, there's like humanity in what she did, because it's like, right, I can't have you making noise, but here, I'm sorry, and lays the dead bird in the nest, and you see eggs, and you're just like, I'm sure there's like a deeper parallel you can draw of, right, her mom being dead, her still being alive, having to grow up most of her life without her mom. There's parallels you can draw there, and here she is, killing people. That's also the thing of, like, you probably don't get too caught up in the people that might miss the people that she's killing. We haven't focused on that too much, but it is still the thing of, most of the people she killed are bad people. This is the first time she's had to kill someone that was innocent, and it felt wrong. I mean, I don't know. I'm also curious. I'm like, is this the first time she's ever had, for one, not just someone innocent, is this the first woman she's ever killed? Because she had to, like, give her the sign that Kaji had told her to, and initially Kinyuo was kind of like, no, she's not responding to it. Like, so I don't know if that's a situation of implying, like, it doesn't mean, like, there's multiple ways you can interpret that, because she lies to Kaji later on. It's like, right, she understood, and it's like, did she? Because she makes the sign back, and she was saying no, like, either saying, like, right, you're not Kaji, or I don't know. Like I said, there's multiple ways you can interpret that. Either like her being reluctant to believe you because it wasn't a clear sign of what Mizu was going to do. Because Mizu was like, don't worry, I'll protect you. And then got her in close, and she was like, okay. And then I was like, what's she going to do? Because she's touching her face. I'm like, what are you going to do? And just snapped her neck. I was like, Jesus. But it was, I think the point was to put her at ease. Because she didn't know what was coming. I guess she didn't also have time to tell her and explain everything, so I think it was also maybe a little easier on Mizu if it's like, you don't see this coming, I'm just going to do this, and it's quick, it's over, and she also had to stage it too, because she had killed one guy with like a kunai or something, and I was like, how are you going to, like, the whole point was to make this look like an accident, but it's like, okay, she sets it up like double murder situation. That the guy strangled her, lost his cool, strangled her, and at the same time she had stabbed him, and they end up dying together. So, but it really struck a chord with Mizu. Like I said, I think this is the first woman she's ever killed, and just also an innocent person. And it makes it like, at least she can justify any deaths of like, these are bad people. Once again, she's only killed people who've tried to come and kill her or who've wronged her. So this is the first time it's just a regular innocent person who's done nothing. You're killing her for her own sake, but also for Kaji's sake. So it's very heartbreaking. It's very, very, very sad. But I love how they did it with this episode, which seems weird to kind of, segue into that, but how the episode was designed where I skipped ahead a little bit with that discussion about what happened to Kiona, but what I wanted to circle to was Akemi's story. So when the two meet, story beat wise, we end up circling back to find out how she got there in the first place. But she kept turning away all these different places that Goro tried to sell her off at, moving from town to town. But at the same time this is all happening, her father found out that she was going. Granted, he found out, it took him like 3 days to find out, because they were like, right, she's getting married in like 5 days, or going to one that she was going to Edo or whatever in like 5 days to meet her soon to be husband. But yeah, like I was like, there's no way that's like a dummy. That's like she's someone pretending to be her, right? Because of which I feel bad for that servant or whatever, because she's going to suffer the ramifications for that. But when it's all said and done, the father finds out and he wants people to find his daughter. And I love Seki obviously playing a fool, but like, oh, I have no idea where she is. Because he eventually made his way back. Because of course he did. He made it clear where he wanted to go. And it's like, right, Akemi made her choice. She'll have to suffer the ramifications of that. So she's trying to find Taigen while also avoiding any people that work for her dad trying to track her down. But she ends up in the same town that Ringo and Mizu are in, and she ends up hearing about the demon, and it ended up being that fight, which just kind of like a wild situation of like, yeah, a proper duel, probably just like the whole Taigen and Mizu thing would have, if an official version of it would have been this, and guy kills the other guy, just everyone's kind of like, oh well, everyone just leaves the guy there dead after his neck gets cut open, and it's just like, I mean, that's just the way it is, but it's still just kind of wild that it's like, yeah, this is entertainment and it's done, so everyone move on. I just thought that was just so interesting. But in that moment, Akemi semi-locks eyes with Mizu, and it's like, okay, I recognize the demon, so she got a job at Madame Kaji's place just for the purpose of getting close to Mizu. And Goro's happy to sell her off and everything, but he was also reluctant to go in because he has a complicated relationship with Kaji, because it's like the last person had, what was it, what was the phrase they used? Was it pox puss or something like that? Which I was like, did she have like, it sounds like she had some kind of maybe STI or STD. I'm assuming more like STI, but like it seems like she had some like sexual stuff going on. I don't know, like got like, you know, some once again, because don't know the difference between an STI and an STD necessarily. What defines one as one and not the other. But it's like, yeah, she had a situation going on, and it's like, yeah, you kind of screwed up business that way. So initially, Kaji didn't want to have anything to do with him, and it's like, and he's trying to make a deal, and she's like, what did I tell you the next time I saw you? He's like, that you would stab me in my nose or whatever. But it's like, oh, here's Akemi, she's all this, she's so well trained. It's like, no, she's not. She's an actual princess. I'm sure she hasn't even seen 2 cocks in her entire life, and she puts up the finger like 1. It's like, well, your naivety will actually kind of work to your favor. You're not a virgin, sure, but it'll still make it so that purity can be kind of a turn on, and it could, you know, lean into the maidenness of it all. So they end up putting her to work. She wanted to go see Mizu, but gets stuck with the other guy who's so big that they say like, oh yeah, his dick doesn't even get hard anymore. And so she kind of entertains him with kind of like this specific poetry, and he starts going, and it got him all riled up. And she's like, oh, and she kind of, with just her words alone, got him going to the point. She's like, yeah, go ahead and jerk yourself off in front of me. I was like, this is wild. Yeah, this show continues to surprise me. I wasn't expecting this story beat, and the others are like, oh wow, impressive that she was able to do that, because no one was able to get that dude's dick hard in a while, because he just got fatter and fatter. One person was even like, yeah, like cracked 2 ribs before with him on top of me. So she accomplished that and was able to go visit Mizu, and Mizu kind of saw through her immediately, because she's like, yeah, you might not know it, but I recognized you immediately, because they locked eyes at the time, but obviously she is who she is, so she didn't really make note of Mizu, but Mizu took notice of her. So it's like, I immediately recognized you as Akemi. And also she probably knew like, oh, she could probably smell the poison in the drink because she did make sure to go put it up to her lips and she's smelling it. But she also was like, oh yeah, go ahead and drink. It's like, oh yeah, and I love that she sat there and complained about Tigan. It's like, yeah, I killed him. Oh, he was so annoying. Yeah, he was more concerned about losing his hair than the marriage. And Akemi tried to attack her, and it's like, I knew who you were from the beginning. You know, it's like, don't worry, Tigan's still alive. I left him alive and made a promise to duel him and yada yada, so on and so forth. And she tries to attack her again, and Mizu ends up taking her down and leaves her with Ringo. And Ringo's kind of, I had brought it up last episode, Ringo's not straight up into murdering people. He's copacetic and okay with Mizu doing it just because it's like, hey, this will be, this is your path of revenge. I just haven't crossed that line yet, but eventually he probably will. Because he didn't even kill the guy that tried to, was going to kill him last episode. He just poisoned him and kicked him off a ledge. I mean, it's like, if you probably would have been better if you actually had killed him, because then he wouldn't have been able to double back and like snatch up Tigan like he did. Which, speaking of Tigan, man, oh man, is he getting the rough end of it. Like getting tortured by Shindo, and Shindo's like, right, tell me about Mizu, and it's like, oh, she'll die by my hand or whatever. But for Tigan, like, once again, he's an honorable dude, despite being a fuckface sometimes. But yeah, he is honorable in regards of like, right, he deserves better than you. Like, you are bottom of the earth, type of opponent. Like, you aren't worthy of Mizu. Like, if anyone's going to kill Mizu, it's me, because I'm so worthy. But yeah, getting sliced up, hit with the hammer, he's all banged up. But he won't break. So, I mean, truth be told, there's not too much he can tell the dude about Mizu, because he never bothered to really know Mizu. So, but I guess there's still enough in Mizu's circumstances. There's still some information, but I don't think it'd be anything relevant. Like Tigan doesn't know enough, despite their upbringing. Like, once again, it's just like, yeah, this is the person I tormented and stuff, but that's about it. So, I don't think there's really much he can say at the time. Back to Akemi and Mizu. I thought it was so interesting when Ringo was like, oh, you got yourself a girl. And he was like, how does that work? I love that Akemi didn't catch on to that conversation, because obviously it's like they quickly moved on from that. But it's like, yeah, how does that work? It's like, it works, but obviously it's like, we're not revealing Mizu's circumstances. But it's like, yeah, she moves, she tries to escape, you kill her. And I love that Ringo was just standing there staring at her. He's like, oh, sorry, I guess it's because like he hasn't seen someone that pretty before. So, circling back to Fowler really quickly, now I was thinking about it, he had that whole proclamation in the church. He was like, yeah, they built it for me because they assumed I'd need it because I'm a white man. And it's just like, he was kind of going on his diatribe about how like they are so godless here in Japan. He feels like they're not God-fearing people, and as a white man, he's kind of labeled and seen in that front. But for him, it's kind of like, yeah, you kind of ignore me, I kind of ignore you. But for him, it's like, I'm going to turn this place, I'm going to basically kill the shogun, basically have this country and build it the way I want it to. And if I don't get any response for you, I understand that you co-signing me. And he's like, that way I'm going to send a whole bunch of souls your way, because I have no need for souls. Like, I think for him, it's like, I'm not here to be worshipped, or there's ways I think to interpret that. Either that's like I'm not here to be worshipped like a god. I don't need their souls or them to be pure or good, so I'll send their souls your way. Or maybe just like, yeah, I'll be ready to kill people easily. I'll reign this territory, and if I need to kill people, there's no point in keeping people alive that I don't need, so I'll send their souls your way, just to kind of make my point. It's interesting too, because even Kaji was kind of making a point of, who knows if she was specifically referencing him. She did kind of reference that she's seen that look in people's eyes, the type of eyes that says that they've partaken of human flesh raw. And I can't quite tell if she was saying like he is someone in particular, or someone of his ilk would be someone that would have partaken of cannibalism. Just thought that was kind of interesting. So, circling back a little bit, Mizu, after killing Kinuyo, she ends up being caught by a little boy, which I was like, you're sadly not wearing your glasses, and like he can clearly see your blue eyes, and you're telling him like, right, go report this to the guard, there's two people fighting, because it's like, right, you want to draw attention to this so you can clarify and make it seem like it was an accident. I was like, probably should have immediately left town, but it probably would have been worse off if you had left town at that time. But she goes back and releases Akemi, and Akemi's like, oh, because in her mind is like, you're supposed to be a demon, you're not even that scary, like, I don't even know why Taigen, I wanted to find you because I needed to find out why Taigen was so more interested in running after you and fighting you than actually marrying me. And it's like, you're not even that scary. And I love Misu just being like, wow, I see why Taigen likes you. You're just like him when he was a kid. A fucking brat. And it's like, wait, you knew him? It's like, oh yeah, Taigen and Mizu have history, as we as the audience know. So that's going to be interesting. But Mizu did bring up the point of, oh, it seems like he's more interested in his hair and getting retribution for that rather than marrying you. Because it's more about his honor in that regard, less about his honor of like, well, it's hand in hand because his honor, restoring his honor, is a personal thing for him as an ego situation, but it's also about being able to marry her because he wants her power and position. Like he wants to marry into power like that, which is so interesting. Once again, it's like it's less about love in his regard than it is for her. Like it's definitely about love, but she's also once again using him. So it is such an interesting conflict for them. But when it's all said and done, the boy ended up, I guess, reporting it to Hamada because it's like he runs everything. So I guess like if anything's going to be passed around, like he must have found the boy and questioned him about it. And the boy was just like, oh, this is the person that's responsible. The person he killed, I don't know if that's the guard that the little boy got or what. Maybe that was. I don't think, I was like, not unless that was supposed, because there's a doctor, the reason why this was all able to happen is because there's a person that comes to visit Kyunyo just to kind of treat any wounds or whatever that Hamata like leaves on her body when he does what he does. So I don't know if that was him in particular or not, unless that was someone that acts as like a guard or something at Kaji's place. Oh yeah, because if I remember correctly, he's the dude that was out front being like, no, Goro, Madame Kaji doesn't want to see you. So it's like, it's definitely someone from her established. I just remembered now, So he is on the warpath now, so this is kind of on Mizu, so it's a whole army, not just Hamada, it's like a whole army, so you'd have to cut through all of his iron claws, so... No, they're not even iron claws, they're called the 1,000 claws or something like that, so it's like how the situation's going to play out, because Mizu's only swordsman amongst them, so I don't know how you resolve that situation without Kaji like losing either a lot of women and her establishment getting burned down, so it seems the most likely in this scenario, so it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see how this all plays out going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.